Hello everybody, it is Sunday the 7th of August. I want to talk about God, spirit, spiritual being, and give you my definition of those words and show you what definitions are and what they work and how we need new definitions. Now, in what I'm saying here, I want to take this to a level of greater understanding of who we are. Yeah, I'm not looking outside of myself. I'm not in this big whodunit in this world. But I think the only way out of this is out of a better understanding of ourselves. Yeah, that's the first thing. And the only thing I can say here is from my perspective, because that is all I can see. Now, my perspective has grown out of looking at a lot of different things, but what came together is in the end my perspective. And that is all I can tell you, is my truth. Yeah. So, take it or leave it. That's all I can ever say. Take it or leave it. So let's come to definitions, because again, I had several comments under the last video. And one of them was, well, the ancients had very much defined, God, spirit, and what it means. Yeah. But that was their definition, out of their perspective, grown out of their time. Yeah, if we have understandings of these things coming out of ancient Egypt or even ancient Greece, those understandings were a product of their time. And although usually, especially in Greece, those were great men, yeah, that said that. But a great man in any period is a man that can rise above what is the status quo at the time. Yeah? But he's still limited by what the status quo is. How far above can they go? So, yes, they had great understanding, and in the end, we are the end product of those understandings. It's not that we're totally detached from them. But if we want to expand now, we need new definitions, or expand on the old definitions. We cannot, if we really say it is like they said in ancient Greece, then we are not expanding from where we are. We are regressing back to ancient Greece. And that is not what I'm trying to do. So, as I said, we need the understanding that built this reality cannot change it. Yeah, the thought that created this reality cannot change it. So we need new thoughts. And as I sitting here, I was thinking, we can go two ways with this. We can either create completely new words, yeah, to describe what we now believe this is how it is. Or we can, as I said, change the old definitions. At the moment, changing definitions seems to be all the rage. Change them on a daily basis. But, I was really thinking about this, and I was thinking for future generations. Either way, if you create new terms or change the old definitions, it will create confusion for a while. It will. And expansion does create confusion. Going out of an old mindset into a new mindset will be disruptive. There's no other way. Especially as that many people on several mindsets. You have to get them out. You have to get them on the new one. There's going to be pushback. There's people are going too far. It's bound to happen. Until a time where we all agree on something again. And again, we may not all agree on the same thing. We might split up into different groups again, as we are now. We're split into different religions and stuff like that. But I mean, that's diversity. Maybe it will always be like that. Maybe we shouldn't all be one. But, yeah, so either way, you create a new language or you change the definitions, it will create for a while confusion until we agree again. Or we're all singing from the same hymn sheet again, let's say like that. And I was actually thinking about future generations. If they ever come again, which they probably will, and sit in a place like we are now, everything has gone belly up and they're wondering where they came from and how this happened, then in changing the definitions, we can show them a clear path if they need to retrace their steps. Yeah? They will see the changes that were made, and we should give to them, and to ourselves obviously, the reason for those changes, why we see it differently now. And that way they can see a clear path. So, okay, changing definitions. And I'm just giving you my definition of what I think. What is spirit, what is a spiritual being, what is a God. And I'm not pulling my definitions out of nothing. Yeah? I will try to show you what they're based on. Based on an understanding that we have now. So, and I mean, if you see any faults in my logic here, yeah, please tell me. Do. But do not tell me I'm wrong because some ancient dude in ancient Greece saw it differently. That does not make me wrong. That's a difference of opinion. And as we are in all possibilities, and we are creating possibilities, can you actually talk about right and wrong? Right and wrong will show itself in the outcome. Anyway, so definitions. First of all, spirit. From what I can see, and I am coming from the Bible, I'm coming from the Judeo-Christian, I am in that teaching. What is described as spirit there is an emotion. Simple as that. It's an emotion. It's another word for emotion. Yeah? When Jesus spoke about, the knowledge being brought by the Holy Spirit, and it filled him. Yeah? That Holy Spirit, what he declared as being holy, was compassion. It was an information, a thought, energy that had attached itself to an emotion. And then it hit him, and he was filled with compassion, and he had a knowledge. So, spirit is basically emotions. And we are saying ourselves, you're of a low spirit, or you're in high spirits. Those are emotions. Yeah, you're in joy, you're in high spirits. You're depressed. Your spirit is really low. So that's what they are. So if I talk in my videos about, I wasn't really going to use the word spirit anymore, but if I am, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about emotional states. And, right, energy being. Next thing, energy being. So this is one part of us, that is one energy that we either can take in or we can exert. We do both. You know, if somebody is next to us in a really low energy, that energy, you know, is depressed or whatever, we're trying to help him, but you know, we have to be very careful that that energy does not affect us, because it can. So it's, you know, we're trying to stay in high spirits, while and that is sometimes not easy, because you are affected by that other energy, by his energy or hers. So that is the one energy. The other is the thought energy. And so as an energy being, you are made out of the two, and whatever you exert or what you receive is usually made out of those two parts. Yeah? People are usually not depressed for nothing. There's a lot of thoughts, mostly really bad thoughts, attached to that energy. So as I say, it's usually made out of the two parts. And then if you see yourself as a container, yeah, with these two parts. So if the container always stays the same size, if the emotional energy comes in more, there's less room for thought. And if you are more in thought, there's less room for emotion. So there's a balance. You can be in different balances if you're more in thought or more in emotion. But, you know, one takes up more space, it will take away from the other. That is why, like, let's say somebody is deeply in fear, filled with fear. And I mean, we can regulate how much in fear we are. You know, if you're just a little bit afraid, you can still think pretty good. If you're completely in fear, you know, that your brain cuts out. That's because the space has been taken up. So, and that's what the people say, you know, if somebody is in a lot of fear and depression and or stress or whatever that energy is, you know, it lowers your IQ. That is not because you've suddenly forgotten, you know, what you knew. It means you cannot use it. You cannot think. And that is not just in a low energy. That is in any energy. If you're full on annihilation, you know, you're not rational. And as I say, when I talked about compassion before, if you're filled with compassion, you no longer judge. You do not think. So that is, as I see us now as an energy being, that is how we function on our energetic level. And that is what is creating the energies, the thought and the emotion. So, and the thing is that you are always that. That is, you're that when you're conscious of it, and it is when you're not conscious of it. Yeah? You are what you are. Whether you're aware of it or not, doesn't matter. So then, that means we can go into unconscious states where we're either not aware of our own thoughts and what they're doing up there and the state that is creating in us, or we are not aware of, because we're impacted by what is outside of us. We're not aware of thoughts that are being put into our head. We're not aware that, you know, you've just been indoctrinated. You just go with it. But then that thought is then the energy that is in your body. And it is becoming you. And you are exerting according to that thought energy. Yeah? And that is basically a spiritual being, and we can direct our energies either toward each other, we can impact each other with that, give the knowledge of ourselves to somebody else, where again a lot of people are doing it, like the Extinction Rebellion crowd, which are obviously have been driven into fear of the CO2 boogeyman, and they're trying to exert that thought and that emotions onto everybody else. And are they conscious that they are actually working this on a spiritual level? That they're spiritual beings exerting spiritual forces? And the other way we can direct it is toward the all, which is a prayer. So, and that is understanding who you are. Are we more than that? Quite possible. But that is as far as I know. As far as I know, and out of that comes my perspective. Anyway, so spiritual being, God. Oh, here it goes. God. What is a God? A God, to me, definition of God. First of all, it is a being. It is a being. It is an energy being. Yeah? It is not all. The all, that's the creator. So my definition of God, it is a being. First of all, it needs to be self-aware. Absolutely needs to be self-aware. Needs to, well, that is the first stage of a God. Second stage of a God needs to become aware of its own energies, needs to know what it is doing. I mean, self-awareness is already a God, in my definition, but it's an infant. It's just been born. And then we grow up. So then, as I said, aware of your own energy, becoming the master of your own energies. And really, you should start to understand, you need to take responsibility for your energies. That means you need to understand what it is you're doing and how you're impacting others. And then comes the question of good and bad. You are the master of yourself. It says in the first commandment, I am is Lord God. You are your own master. You're responsible for your own actions, and you should know what you're doing. Yeah? But again, good and bad is according to a situation, and we're learning. We are still learning, how to define good and bad. To me, again, personal opinion, good is that which impacts on another in a positive way. And then, if somebody is in a state of, I don't know, it's just I can do whatever I want. Yeah? And he's actually self-destructive in that way. Then you would impact him with a restricting thought and a restricting emotion, emotional energy. And in that case, that actually constitutes good. Because you're doing something that he needed that. He needed to be restrained. And in that case, what the lower energies actually become good. So that would be my definition of good and bad. Whatever serves at the time to keep somebody in a healthy, balanced state. Let's say it like that. Yeah. Again, I mean, I'm not saying they cannot take off in search of an expansion. Absolutely, you should. Everybody should. But, if you feel they've gone too far, they've just taken off into the blue yonder, then you need to take them back. And in which case, what is described actually to us as a negative energy would actually do good. See again that is the knowledge of a God, an understanding of a God. Now, or to me it is anyway. Now, I had comments. First of all, I think I had a comment saying, you are not a God, accept what you are. No, I am a God. I do not have to accept what I am. My pot plant has to accept what it is because there's nothing else it can do. Yeah? I don't have to accept that. I can try to change myself, to make myself into something greater. And I can do it. I have the ability to do that. Yeah? So no, it's not accept what you are. I'm not a bloody cabbage. I'm a human being. And another thing, I had a comment saying, can you loosen the belts of Orion or something like that? I don't know the exact quote at the moment, but I know it. Are you a God? And there you are actually unconsciously throwing an archetype at me. Yeah? A definition of God. God is that being that has got the power to loosen the belt of Orion. Yeah? And then by that definition, no, I'm not God. Obviously not. I wouldn't want to be that God. I would not want to loosen the belt of Orion. Even if I would not even go in my development looking for that knowledge. Because again, in my understanding, I am says what is good and bad. Well, my I am says loosening the belt of Orion is probably a totally stupid and probably dangerous idea. So no, I wouldn't want to be that God, even if I could be that God. I can be that God, but I have free will. So again, but that's the definition of a God. That is an archetype. And if you look, like in the Bible, yeah, what is taught to you there is God. God is a being that will rule over everything else. It's so powerful it will rule over. That's a God. Something that rules over everything else. And by the way, you're not one, because you're going to be ruled over. That's another archetype. If you look at the Greek pantheon of gods, you can see a lot of different types, archetypes. Yeah? So God is not just one thing. If you go by the Greek definition, God is not just one thing. It can be many different things. Yeah? And then you think, how did these archetypes come into being? They created themselves. Through their desires, through their intentions, through finding knowledge, that, increasing a knowledge that would serve the desire and the intentions, through a knowledge of themselves. They created themselves. And am I a God like that? No, I'm not. But they're ancient. We're saying they are the ancients. Yeah, humanity is not ancient. That is quite old, but it is, in the greater scheme of things, no, we're a very young species. And I will show you that in my next video, we are a species that was not allowed to develop. Our development, our spiritual development, has been stunted and deliberately stunted by something else. Yeah, because that's what I want to talk next. Again, going back in the Bible and actually showing you a spiritual development, you know, and what the end product was, and then asking where should we go from here. But that's the next video. So anyway, I think I will leave it at that for now. See, and there's I mean, my definition of spirit as emotion is actually a more practical definition, because you can actually work with that. Spirit is somewhere fuzzy out there, but emotion is something you can actually think about, work with, you can see it, you know, and you can start looking at how you're being impacted, how you're impacting others, and how this whole thing of, you know, if you're too emotional you can't think and stuff like that. It's something you can practically work with. And again, we're bringing a term, spirit, which is up in heaven, and we're bringing it to earth. And we see it in ourselves, and we can actually work it here. Yeah, energy being, again, it is practical. You can see it in yourself because you're supposed to work on yourself. My definition of God, yeah, is not an archetype. When I say self-aware, you know, being able to know its own energies and work its own energies and take responsibility for its own energies, then I'm not talking of God as an archetype that is set in stone. But I'm talking about, well, want to, for lack of words, a machine and its working parts. And out of that, you can create anything. So there's again a definition of God out of which you can work an expansion for yourself. And you're not restricted by archetypes and saying that is a God and that is a God and that is a God and there's no other possibility. Or if you're in the Bible, there is only one. And then you must become this, that, or the other. No, you are a machine with moving parts, and you can create anything out of it. And there's freedom. There's a definition of a God that is not restricting. Anyway, yes, I will leave it at this, and I'll talk to you again soon. Oh, one last thing. If the headlines of my videos today look really weird, my keypad has just packed up. And I really don't know what I can do. So let's see what comes out of that. Anyways, I talk to you again soon. Bye.